When I was a baby, my mom met my sister's dad. He was very clear with her from the start that I wouldn't be important to him because I was someone else's child. My mom was fine with that, and it seems like they moved in together just a few weeks after they started dating. He never became anything to me. He was just the guy my mom was with. When I was 4 years old, they had my sister Katie. By that time, they were married. Katie was always the apple of her dad's eye. She got all his attention and affection. She and I had a very up and down relationship. Sometimes we got along okay, but other times I would pull back, especially when she praised her dad and talked about how lucky we were to have him as our dad. Even though her dad told her that I wasn't his kid and she was the only person in the world who mattered to him, she would still talk about him like he was amazing to both of us. Our mom often told me that I needed to accept that I had a different dad than Katie and that it was okay. She said that kids often have different parents, but are still siblings and should be close. But it was hard for me because Katie got everything while I got nothing. She would often point this out. She'd ask, "Why don't you have nice clothes? Why don't you eat with us? Why don't you come to the amusement park with Dad and me?" She'd tell me to ask for these things. One time she followed me around all day, telling me to ask her dad for new clothes. To get her off my back, I did. But when I asked him, he just looked at me and asked why I was asking him for anything. And that was the end of it. Katie said, I gave up too easily. When my mom got sick and I was a teenager, I decided it was time to tell Katie the full truth so she would hopefully understand. I explained to her that her dad had never been a father to me and that I had always felt like an outsider. But she insisted that her dad was still my dad because he had raised me and that I should treat him like my dad. She completely dismissed everything I told her. But she was just a kid then, so it was understandable. As my mom got sicker, things got even harder. I had to take on a lot more responsibility at home, and I felt even more isolated. My stepdad didn't help me or support me, he only cared about Katie. I moved out just before my 18th birthday, and then my mom died. It came as no surprise to me that I wasn't welcome at her funeral. Katie wanted me there, but her dad made it clear it wasn't the place for me. To be honest, I had a lot of anger towards my mom for the way things had turned out, so I wasn't sad to miss the funeral. 6 years later, Katie's dad was diagnosed with a terminal disease after not taking care of himself. Now I'm 24, and Katie is 20. She called me when they got the news, saying we would need to help take care of him. I told Katie there was no way I was going to help. She said we couldn't just leave him, and that we owed him better than to let him rot alone and unwanted. I told her I owed that man nothing. He hated me and did nothing for me, and I didn't care to comfort him in his final months. Katie was really upset and told me she couldn't do it alone. She said she needed my help because I was all she had in the world. She tried to make me feel guilty, saying that if I didn't help, she would be stuck caring for him by herself. I told her she would need to find others to help her, but I was not going to care for the man who treated me badly just because I wasn't his biological child. This situation is really complicated and emotional for me. On one hand, I understand that Katie is in a tough spot and needs support, but on the other hand, I can't bring myself to care for a man who was so cruel to me. He made it clear throughout my life that I was not his child and that I didn't matter to him. It hurts to think about all the times he favored Katie and ignored me, and now I'm supposed to help him just because he's sick? I've been thinking about all the times he made me feel like an outsider. When I was younger, he never included me in family activities. Katie would always come back from fun trips or outings with him, and I was left behind. She would get new clothes and toys while I had to make do with what I had. It wasn't just about the material things, it was the constant reminder that I wasn't part of his family. Even when my mom was sick, he didn't step up to help me. I had to juggle school, taking care of my mom, and managing the house. He was only concerned about Katie. I remember one time when I asked him for help because I was overwhelmed, and he just told me to figure it out on my own. That was the kind of support I got from him. Now, 6 years later, he's the one who needs help. And Katie is asking me to step in and be there for him. I feel guilty for not wanting to help, but I also feel like I need to protect myself from getting hurt again. I've built a life for myself away from that pain, and going back to help him feels like opening old wounds. So what do you all think? Am I wrong for not wanting to help take care of Katie's dad, even though he's sick and needs help? Should I be doing it for Katie's sake because she needs my support? How can I explain to Katie that I can't do this without hurting her more? Thanks for listening and for any advice you can give. Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments, not the idiot. She was a kid, but she's old enough to know better now. But your mother's idiot for marrying this guy in the first place. Your mom should never have let someone into her life who outright hated you. He stole your childhood and you owe him nothing. You owe her nothing as well. Katie sounds self-absorbed to the point of selfishness. Your stepfather abused you. Your mother allowed the abuse. So sad that you had such a shallow woman as your mother. She turned her back on her 6-month-old baby, sacrificing your emotional needs to secure a husband. That era of your life is now over. So do not let Katie drag you back there. He made it clear that he's not your dad just because Katie lives in her world. Does it make it any less true? Just cut her out of your life permanently. Your sister comes off as a spoiled golden child who has severe issues with empathy and selfishness, or perhaps even derives some kind of satisfaction from watching you suffer. Stop engaging. Walk away. Story 2. So, I gave birth to my son 18 weeks ago, and for most of my pregnancy, I kept it a secret. Only my husband's parents and my sister knew about it. I didn't tell my dad, his wife, or my half-sister, and there are a couple of reasons why. Let me start from the beginning. A few years ago, I thought I was pregnant. I was really excited and told everyone, including my dad and his wife. But unfortunately, I ended up having a miscarriage. It was a really tough time for me, and I was devastated. Instead of giving me the space I needed to grieve, my dad's wife was overwhelming. She kept telling me that was when a girl needed her mom the most and wouldn't let me push her away. She married my dad when my sister and I were young after our mom had died, so she saw herself as filling that mom role. But she was too pushy about it, even after all I had been through. She wouldn't give me space when I asked for it, and my husband had to make her leave our home. This whole experience made me very wary of sharing personal news with my dad's wife. I felt like she didn't respect my boundaries and tried to force a relationship that I wasn't comfortable with. This was one of the main reasons why I decided to keep my pregnancy a secret this time. The other reason is related to my sister. She has 2 kids, and during both of her pregnancies, our dad's wife tormented her with talks about how she'd need her as her mom. She kept saying how my sister needed her support during pregnancy, and how becoming a mom would make her appreciate her in a new way. My sister actually grew to despise her because of this. Neither of us were ever big fans of hers, but her behavior made my sister really dislike her. She even told my sister she was being dramatic when she said she missed our mom. My stepmom said pregnancy makes women irrational, and there's no reason to miss a ghost. Because of all this, my sister doesn't allow our dad's wife to be known as grandma to her kids. This history made me decide to keep quiet when I got pregnant. I don't live close to my dad anymore, so it was easier to stay away. I knew keeping it a secret would hurt their feelings, but I honestly didn't have it in me to care. Throughout my pregnancy, I managed to keep it a secret from them. It wasn't easy, but I felt it was the best way to avoid the stress and drama that would come with their involvement. My husband and I prepared for our baby quietly and enjoyed the experience without any interference. When I finally had my baby and they found out, my dad was furious. His wife and my half-sister sent me messages saying I was cruel and unfair for not telling them. They said I robbed them of the excitement and tainted the whole experience. They also mentioned that my dad's wife becoming a grandma for the 3rd time was important, especially since her other grandkids will never call her grandma. They think I was selfish for taking that joy away from her. My dad's wife sent me a long message saying how hurt she was that I didn't include her in this important part of my life. She said she had always tried to be a mother to me and couldn't understand why I would shut her out. She went on about how she missed out on the excitement of the pregnancy and the joy of waiting for a new baby in the family. My half-sister also chimed in, saying that it was unfair to keep such a big secret from the family. She said she felt excluded and hurt that I didn't trust them enough to share my pregnancy news. She accused me of being selfish and only thinking about myself. My dad called me and expressed his disappointment. He said he couldn't believe I would do something like this, and that it was a betrayal to keep such a big secret. He said that family is important, and that I should have shared the news, regardless of past issues. I tried to explain my reasons to them, but they wouldn't listen. They were too caught up in their own feelings of hurt and betrayal to understand why I made the decision I did. I told them about my past experience with my dad's wife and how overwhelming she was during my miscarriage. I also mentioned how she treated my sister during her pregnancies and how that made me wary of sharing my news. But they just kept saying that I should have given her a chance, that things might have been different this time. They said I robbed her of the opportunity to be a part of my pregnancy and to bond with her new grandchild. This whole situation has made me feel really conflicted. On one hand, I feel justified in my decision to keep my pregnancy a secret. I needed to protect my mental health and ensure a stress-free pregnancy. On the other hand, I feel guilty for causing so much hurt and disappointment in my family. I've been thinking a lot about what happened and whether I could have handled things differently. Maybe I should have set clearer boundaries and given my dad's wife another chance. But at the time, I felt that keeping the secret was the best way to protect myself and my baby. So what do you all think? Was I wrong for keeping my pregnancy a secret from them? Should I have handled things differently? How can I make things right with my family now? Thanks for listening and for any advice you can give. So am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. Nope, not the idiot at all. Your stepmother sounds smothering. You did the best for yourself, your husband and your child. Your pregnancy and birth were never about them. You cannot force love or close connections with people. They'll either mesh well together or they don't. Step parents who try to replace a dead parent completely will almost always fail to make the bonds they're trying to forcefully forge. But she expecting your baby to call her grandma when it flew out of the delivery room? This woman is not your stepmother. She's merely your dad's second wife. It sounds like they need an intervention to make it clear that their fantasy is not real and will never happen. They're still upset because they believe in their version of the family fantasy and thus think they're being treated unkindly. The only way you will ever get them to back off is to get them to accept reality. As it stands, you're doing the right thing to protect your family and keep the boundary. Congrats on the new bub, sending you lots of contented baby vibes. Story 3. So my husband's sister moved in with us after a huge argument with her partner about their baby's name. She's 7 months pregnant, and she's known to be very picky about food. She refuses to eat what we normally cook. The problem is, she only eats her favorite foods, which I can't eat because I'm allergic to them. Yay, allergies. So every day at dinner, I have to figure out what to eat since she only eats the food I'm allergic to. Let's go back to how this all started. My sister-in-law and her partner had a big fight over what to name their baby, and things got so heated that she decided to leave and stay with us for a while. At first, I thought it would be okay. I mean, she's family and she needed a place to stay. But soon it became clear that things weren't going to be easy. You see, my sister-in-law is extremely picky about what she eats. She has a very limited list of foods she'll eat, and it just so happens that almost all of them are things I'm allergic to. I have severe food allergies, and I can't eat certain things without risking a serious reaction. So, while she's here, we've had to cook separate meals, one for her and one for the rest of us. This has been a real challenge, and it's starting to wear me down. Last night, my husband and I had planned to make 2 separate meals, one for her and one for us. He promised he would handle the cooking so I wouldn't have to worry about it after a long day at work. I was looking forward to this plan because it meant I wouldn't have to scramble to find something to eat. But when I got home after a long, exhausting day at work, I found out that my sister-in-law had convinced my husband to only cook the meal she wanted and cancel the meal we had planned to have. I walked into the kitchen, and there they were, eating together. My husband looked apologetic and said his sister had convinced him to just cook her meal and skip ours. He tried to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal, but it felt like a huge betrayal to me. I had been looking forward to a nice dinner after a long day, and now I had nothing to eat. Trying to keep my cool, I said it was fine and decided to order some food from a restaurant. I thought that would solve the problem for the night, so I placed an order for delivery. While waiting for my food to arrive, I went upstairs to take a shower and unwind. After my shower, I did some work on my laptop to catch up on a few things, then went downstairs to get my food, which had arrived. When I got to the kitchen, I found my order sitting on the counter. But when I opened the box, I saw that most of the food was gone. Someone had eaten the majority of it, leaving only a small portion of rice and some dressings. I was in shock. I turned around and saw my sister-in-law standing there. She told me she had woken up hungry and couldn't resist the smell of the food, so she ate it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I lost it and yelled at her, asking why she did that. But she just shrugged and said she had saved me some, which wasn't true at all. There was barely anything left. We started arguing, and I told her I couldn't take this anymore. I told her to pack her stuff and leave first thing in the morning. She started crying, and my husband got involved. He defended her repeatedly, saying that she was pregnant and eating for 2. He suggested I should just make myself something quick from the fridge and let it go. But I was so upset and frustrated that I refused, and a bigger argument ensued. Here's why this situation is so complicated and stressful for me. My sister-in-law has been really difficult to live with. She's very picky about food, and it feels like she expects everyone to cater to her needs without considering anyone else. I understand that she's pregnant and has cravings, but I have allergies that I can't ignore. It's not fair that I have to miss out on meals just because she doesn't like what we usually eat. I thought my husband understood this, but it seems like he's more focused on keeping his sister happy. I was really upset when I came home and found out he didn't make our meal as planned. It felt like he was putting his sister's needs above mine, and that really hurt. Then, when I found out she had eaten my takeout food, it was just too much. I was tired, hungry, and frustrated, and her actions felt like the last straw. I know she's pregnant and has cravings, but eating someone else's food without asking is just rude, especially when she knows I have limited options because of my allergies. My husband defending her and suggesting I just make something from the fridge made me feel like my feelings didn't matter. I tried to talk to my husband about how I was feeling, but he kept insisting that his sister didn't mean any harm, and that I should be more understanding because she's pregnant. He told me that it's just a temporary situation and things will go back to normal once she has the baby and moves back home. But that doesn't make the current situation any easier to deal with. It's not just about the food either. Living with my sister-in-law has affected our whole household. She's very demanding and expects everyone to cater to her needs. She doesn't help out around the house, and she always wants things done her way. It's exhausting, and it's causing a lot of tension between my husband and me. I feel like I'm being asked to put up with a lot and make all the sacrifices while she gets everything she wants. It's not fair, and it's making me feel resentful. I love my husband, but this situation is really straining our relationship. I don't know how much more I can take. So, what do you all think? Was I wrong for getting upset and telling my sister-in-law to leave? Should I have handled the situation differently? How can I get through this without causing more tension in my marriage? Thanks for listening and for any advice you can give. Am I the idiot for kicking her out over this? Now for the top comments. Not the idiot. And you don't have a sister-in-law problem. You have a husband problem. Don't get me wrong. Your sister-in-law sounds like a spoiled, selfish, and entitled piece of work, pregnant or not. But your problem is that your husband is more concerned with their health and happiness than yours. So he needs to get his priorities in the right place. Yeah, like, how exactly was the husband convinced that his wife, whom he promised to make food for and therefore was expecting it, didn't need to eat dinner and didn't need to be told that she'd have no dinner, apparently, literally because she wasn't even allowed the food she got for herself afterward? Sister-in-law is the idiot, but the husband is the bigger idiot. Just throw that whole family away. It's very clear how little they think of you, Opie. I don't get it. Why would you convince your host not to cook for the wife? It makes no sense. How could he be okay with that? I mean, maybe if instead he switched and cooked the same meal for him and his sister and something just for his wife. Where do people keep finding these spouses? Because this is also a woman who left her husband over a fight about baby names. She's obviously insufferable. The leaves because of a disagreement over baby names. I know it's stressful. I have to. But I mean, if one person didn't like the name, it was off the table. And, sorry, Opie, I wouldn't have let her stay in the first place. I would tell her to work it out instead. Her own house to eat our food. Your husband and sister-in-law are completely disrespectful. If I were the Opie, I would ask sister-in-law's husband if I could spend a week at his house since his wife is driving me crazy. I guarantee that both Opie's husband and sister-in-law will resolve all the fights in Brazil. We have a saying that doesn't make sense in English, but fits very well in this case. Medicine for crazy is crazy and a half. The only winner here seems to be your brother-in-law who's getting a break from this crap. Story 4. So, my fiancé and I are engaged, and we recently chose our wedding party. My bridesmaids are my 2 closest friends, and his groomsmen are my brother and his 2 best friends. One of his best friends is actually like a big brother to him. Everything was going smoothly until we hit a bump with his family. Let me give you a bit more background. My fiancé has a younger sister who is 4 years younger than him. She's a cancer survivor, and that has really shaped their family dynamics. His parents have always spoiled her and expect everyone else to do the same. She knows how to use this to her advantage. Whenever she wants something and he says no, she throws the fact that she had cancer in his face. She even accuses him of wishing she had died just because he won't do something she wants. This situation has caused a lot of tension in their family. My fiancé has admitted to me that sometimes he really dislikes his sister because of how manipulative she can be. He's not estranged from his family, but he's not very close to them either. He blames his parents for what happened and has a lot of resentment toward them. He said he was mostly ignored as a kid because his sister was sick, and then after she recovered, he was expected to treat her like a princess. He feels his parents ruined her and gave him a really tough childhood. When we started planning our wedding, we talked about our wedding party. My fiancé mentioned not wanting his sister in the wedding. I respected that, especially since, to be blunt, I don't care about her at all. We never hung out or anything. But apparently his sister and his parents were expecting her to be asked to be a bridesmaid. They were all waiting for the invitation after we got engaged. When no invite came, I got personal calls from all 3 of them. First, my sister-in-law-to-be called me. She sounded really excited at first, asking about the wedding plans and what I was thinking for the ceremony and reception. Then she asked about the bridesmaids, and I told her I had chosen my 2 closest friends. She paused for a moment and then asked why she hadn't been included. I explained that I wanted my 2 best friends to stand with me because they've been there for me through everything. She got really quiet and then said she was hurt that I didn't consider her. Not long after my fiancé's parents called, they asked why their daughter wasn't included in the bridal party. I told them the same thing I told her, that I had planned to have my 2 closest friends as my bridesmaids. They argued that she's family and important to my fiancé. I explained that she wasn't close to me, and they were asking me to include her in my bridal party where she didn't belong. They said she's family and should be part of such an important day. His parents weren't happy with my explanation. They called me an idiot and said I should make more effort to include her. They also said nobody belonged in my bridal party more than she did, and that thinking otherwise made me sound like a bully. They kept bringing up all she's been through and how I should be more considerate. They said I was being selfish and not thinking about family. This situation is really stressing me out. My fiancé supports my decision, but his family is making me feel guilty about it. They're making it seem like I'm the bad guy for not including her, even though I don't have a close relationship with her. I feel like they're trying to pressure me into including someone in my bridal party just because she's his sister and a cancer survivor. I understand she's been through a lot, but I don't think that means she should automatically be in my wedding party. My fiancé has a lot of resentment toward his parents for how they treated him growing up. He said they were so focused on his sister that they ignored him most of the time. He feels like he missed out on a lot because of how they treated him. He doesn't want his sister in the wedding party either because he thinks it would cause more drama and stress. I've tried to explain this to his family, but they don't seem to understand. They keep saying that family is important and that I should include her to keep the peace. But I don't think it's fair to ask me to include someone in my bridal party who I'm not close to and who my fiancé doesn't want there. This whole situation has made me feel really conflicted. On one hand, I want to make my fiancé happy and have the wedding we both want. On the other hand, I don't want to cause more tension with his family. I feel like I'm stuck in the middle and don't know what to do. So, what do you all think? Am I wrong for not wanting to include my fiancé's sister in the wedding party? Should I just go along with it to keep the peace? How can I handle this situation without causing more tension in my marriage? Thanks for listening and for any advice you can give. Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments, not the idiot. But your fiancé needs to stand up and say, actually, I don't want her in the bridal party either. Both of you are allowed to specify who you want alongside you on the day, but it's not fair that you get all the blame when this is a joint decision between you, this right here. And it demands to be in a bridal party. This seems a bit entitled. The parents are way out of line here, and your fiancé should assist you in putting a stop to it. And I would consider going loser, no contact with these people. I can only imagine how they try to take control and twist it to suit his little sister. If you and your fiancé had a child, she had cancer. So you should give her your baby. OP, they all need to be put on an info diet regarding the wedding so she doesn't turn up in the same colors as your bridesmaids or white dress because not going to lie. She sounds like the type to do it to get some attention. Let your fiancé handle this family. It needs to come from him. Story 5. So, I'm a 27-year-old woman, and up until last week, I was living with my parents. I have a dog that I absolutely love. She's been my best friend ever since I graduated from university. I'm not very social and prefer her company to most people I know. I've had boyfriends and even a short relationship that ended on good terms. But honestly, I'm just not interested in much beyond my work and my dog. My parents think this is a problem, but I don't. Living at home has been a mixed experience for me. On the one hand, I get along well with my dad, and my brother is still in high school, so he's always busy with schoolwork and friends. But on the other hand, my mom and I have a very strained relationship. She has very strong opinions about how I should live my life, and she's never been shy about sharing them. I also have a younger brother who lives with us. He's still in high school and doesn't pay rent. I, on the other hand, pay about 50% of all the household expenses, including groceries. It's roughly the same as the cost of rent. In exchange, I get to live in the basement suite. It's an illegal suite, meaning it's not up to code to be rented out to strangers, but it's fine for a family member because of building codes and stuff. It would cost a lot of money to make it suitable for a renter, so my mom decided I could live there. My mom thinks the reason I'm not actively looking for a husband is because I spend too much time and attention on my dog. My dog does have some health problems, but nothing I can't afford, and nothing that affects her quality of life. Despite this, my mom decided to give my dog away while I was at work. When I came home, my dog was gone, along with all her stuff, her toys, her leash, everything. I completely lost it with my mom. I demanded she tell me where my dog was, or I would call the cops and report her for stealing my dog. Eventually, she told me where my dog was, and I went to get her back. I then returned to my parents' house, packed up all my important stuff, and went to stay at a friend's house. Since then, my dad has been calling and texting me, asking for money for this month's expenses. I told him he should have thought about that when he allowed my mom to give away my dog. My dad lost his job because of the global situation, so they can't afford all the household bills without my help. He told me they'll be out of money in 3 months without my contributions, but after what happened, I don't trust them anymore. To give you more background, my mom has always been very critical of me. She's always telling me that I'm not doing enough with my life, that I should be more social, that I should find a husband, and that I should start a family. But I'm happy with the way things are. I have a job I enjoy, I have my dog who I love, and I have a few close friends who mean the world to me. I don't see why I need to change anything just to fit her idea of what my life should be. My dad, on the other hand, has always been more supportive. He understands that I'm different from my mom and that I have my own way of doing things. But he's in a tough spot right now because he lost his job due to the global situation, and they're struggling to make ends meet. He's been asking me to come back and help with the bills, but I don't know if I can do that after what my mom did. When I found out my dog was gone, I felt like my world was falling apart. My dog has been with me through thick and thin. She's been there for me when I've been sad, when I've been lonely, and when I've been happy. She's always been a source of comfort and joy for me. So when I came home and found out she was gone, I was devastated. All her things were gone too. Her toys, her leash, her bed. It was like she had never been there. I confronted my mom about it, and she was unapologetic. She said she was doing what was best for me, and that I needed to start focusing on finding a husband and starting a family. She said my dog was a distraction and that I needed to get my priorities straight. I was furious. I told her that my dog was my family and that she had no right to take her away from me. I told her that if she didn't tell me where my dog was, I would call the cops and report her for stealing my dog. Eventually, she told me where my dog was, and I went to get her back. I then returned to my parents' house, packed up all my important stuff, and went to stay at a friend's house. Since then, my dad has been calling and texting me, asking for money for this month's expenses. I told him he should have thought about that when he allowed my mom to give away my dog. My dad lost his job because of the global situation, so they can't afford all the household bills without my help. He told me they'll be out of money in 3 months without my contributions. But after what happened, I don't trust them anymore. Now, my family thinks I'm an idiot for caring more about my dog than I do about them. They think I'm being selfish and that I should come back and help them out. So what do you all think? Was I wrong for leaving and not wanting to help my family anymore? Should I have handled things differently? Thanks for listening and for any advice you can give. Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. Not the idiot. Your parents are absolutely taking advantage of you. Were you paying half of everything and you were paying market rent when your basement suite wasn't even up to code? This is all so wrong for so many reasons, and that's before they dared to get rid of your dog. They deserve absolutely everything that's coming to them. Whatever you do, never give them another set. I'm just so glad you could get your dog back and that the two of you can move somewhere that you're both comfortable with and safe. They can move into the basement and rent out the room upstairs. Problem solved. Opie, you cannot live with people who steal from you and sit and live with people who try to control you. They only have themselves to blame for the current situation. They can all get off their butts and work, and you should find a place far from them and enjoy your life with your dog. Also, just thinking that if the mother's problem is that she's not looking for a husband, does she think that if she does get married, they're all going to live together in her house and continue paying? Or will she move out and continue paying them as if she were living there? They would have the same problem. Her idiot actions just precipitated it. Opie, you're nearly 30, and they still depends on you financially. They should have thought of that before alienating you and breaking your trust. It's not even about the dog. It's about being able to trust them again.